All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Got an exciting build, the Takom Sd.Kfz 250-1, the smaller half track that the German Army used in World War II. And we'll be doing our build video today. To follow, we'll be painting and then a weathering video. And I'm also trying to put something together for the figure. I'm not a figure painter, not a professional one. I don't think that I do it amazingly. I think I do it good enough. So that little sneak peek on what's to come to kind of share my simple yet effective method. But for this build, there's a couple things, and I'm going to point them out throughout the video, but there's a couple instructional errors. There are a couple fit issues, like with this, we're putting down the panels that the torsion bars are going to pass through. Even with extra sanding, the pieces are too tight. The good news, and you can probably see all the glue on the bottom. I tried to finagle this in a bunch of different ways, but couldn't get it to fit. Good news, the floor panel just covers it all. So all you need is enough room. Doesn't really matter if they're warped, like I'm going to have them here, because the floor panel covers them, and as long as the torsion bars can pass through, your suspension will be workable. Now, we mentioned it on the review that the suspension is workable. The front wheels are fixed, and so are the back wheels, return roller, whatever it would be called on a half track. So you can work the wheels in the middle a little bit, but not the front or the back. So a little bit of an interesting choice, but anyways, that's something to look out for right away. Is a little tough to fit these pieces in there, but don't let that deter you. There are also a lot of pieces. This kit is immensely detailed. I, again, said in my review, I thought it was crazy when I opened the box and there's 12 sprues full of, what looks like 100 tiny pieces each, and then the lower hole is this small. But if you build it, it will have, like, the right way, follow the steps, the correct ones at least. The kit will have a ridiculous amount of detail. Something that it's kind of interesting. There's no real paint guide in terms of tools in the figure. There's like two shots of the interior and the engine. So I mean, we all pretty much know what to paint these things, but there's a couple tools and accessories and the canopy that goes over that I think we're kind of left guessing. So it's a little bit of an interesting approach, and it doesn't show you where to display some of the boxes and things that come with it, but we can use our creative minds to find somewhere for those. So I'm just finishing up the suspension here. These pieces for the back wheel are very difficult to line up. I noticed that the Takom plastic, this is my first Takom kit, it seems a lot harder than Tamiya or Academy or Airfix or any others that I've built, which is great. It's not brittle, especially with all these little pieces. But with Tamiya, you put extra thin on, one piece, and you could drop from the air a tiny piece and it would stick to that extra cement. This you got to hold for a couple seconds, which makes it a little bit difficult with working some of these small parts in that are too small to really dry fit well. So that's something to keep in mind. You will get that a lot on this build, but nothing that we as modelers can't work through. So we'll finish up that, and now we'll take a look at the first instructional error here when we do the wheels. So B5 is the car 98. I'll show you the sprue in a second. There you go. It's supposed to be B4 and then B9. The wheels that are right under it. So you'll see there's a male and a female side of the wheel. So it's not overly complicated to figure out, but I'm not used to instructional errors, so I think it's worth pointing out, just something to be aware of. And there's a couple times where things like this happen. I think probably most notably on the front wheels, which we'll take a look at in a second. And then we'll get on to the kit comes with workable tracks. They are honestly pretty easy. They're probably the toughest to clean up. I was very careful with the glue the first time. A little too careful. Some of the pads were popping off. So I went back and I was a little bit less careful with the glue. And they're fine. I mean, there's one or two spots in each set that are a little bit not so workable. They still move, just maybe a limited range. But totally fine, especially, just keep those in the straight section. And I want to say it was between 1 and 2 hours that I built up both sections of track. So it's nothing too crazy. And it is a really nice feature on this kit, and something that personally I would like to see on every armor model kit going forward. I think we've reached an age where this should be just in the box, right? We shouldn't have to pay $40, $50 for workable tracks, even though we did on the Panzer IV. But that's one set of tracks finished. And you can see one or two hard spots in there, but that's after I went over it the second time, and they're very, very workable, very flexible. So it's nice. And there's a little bit of pull to them without them breaking apart. So that's nice. All right. So this next part with the front road wheels. Oh, sorry, that's in a second. We're going to add the front suspension. So rear wheels, or the regular wheels, have workable suspension. This is not. This is fixed. Not sure why. I'm not a model engineer, nor did I come up with it, but it's fine. It works. Especially, I'm going to be displaying it just static. And still unsure. It's a nice part of this kit is it comes with fully open canopy, half, and then almost fully closed, like 90% closed. So depending on how into the detail you want to get, if you don't really want to do much interior detail, you could put that closed one on, and it's not, I think it was around $30 for the kit. It's not the world's most expensive. Um, I want to say building took days. Now I never sat down for 8 hours at a time, but you know, there's a lot of pieces in here. So, all right, this is important. I am not building the wheels. I'm building them per the directions. Now, as I understand it, per the directions, the tread is going to line up evenly on the left half and the right half of this wheel. The way that the little nubs work, as you see me putting them together, it's only going to really sit with the tread perfectly aligned. On this vehicle, and in the diagram, this is one of those parts where it's hard to tell, but they should be offset. I do not glue them offset. That is a minor detail that personally I'm not worried about. They're hard enough. It's a really cool concept to build the wheels like this, and there's a lot of extra detail that I don't think you could get just out of a mold, but you'd have to glue them first and twist. They won't sit offset. So you'd have to get, the plastic nice and hot, melted, whatever, and then, maybe give it 30 seconds and then start twisting it. I didn't feel like doing that. Again, my personal choice. But if you want it to be accurate, which I know a lot of people are concerned with, that's just something to plan for and to, you know, dry fit and experiment a little bit before, you fully glue it. But we'll get those on. And I had to keep adjusting the clothespins here. Again, it was already, it's not a loose fit, it's just little parts. I don't know if they were a little warped or what, but those glued together, and once I got them painted up black and everything, they look awesome. So overly very happy with those, even if there are some minor flaws with them. All right, next, so we're around step 8 right now. Oh, we're on step 8. We're gonna build the world's most amazingly complicated armrest, and there's some really tough photo etch. I couldn't get it on camera because it took me too long to do it. And there's a lot of construction that I leave out of this video because I had to put the model, an inch from my face to, and there's a lot of hands. I apologize, but there's a lot of small parts in this kit, so it's not quite as easy to film and to see the directions, and you know it is what it is. It's what we got to do to build this kit. So um, the photo etch in this kit, it's really nicely detailed. I wouldn't say it's a problem because once it's on, it looks great, but it's almost impossible to bend when you're taking it out of the photo etch sprue, like not to bend it. So all my pieces kind of have like one little bump in them that I couldn't fully smooth out. It is what it is. You can find ways to hide it and kind of get past it, but um, there's the most tricky pieces are going to go on around the D35 and 36, 37 and 38 pieces, which are essentially looks like the footrest. I'm plugging them in on the sides there. So definitely make sure you do that before you attach any of that into the vehicle. I don't think any of the other photo etch was as difficult. This is definitely the trickiest. So after this step is the engine build step, or steps. Now, I did not record me building the engine. Reason being, um, you should build the engine, at least the main components of it, because the exhaust pipe runs out of the engine, out of the fender, and angles down, and then we're going to attach a piece to it later, which is not in the directions, unless I missed that one. But we have to figure out what piece that is. So I get the engine built up, at least the minor parts, and just glued in. The hatches either have to be glued open or glued shut, unless you were able to scratch build some sort of hinge system. So I want it to just be static with the driver in there, the figure that comes with the kit, which is a phenomenal figure. So I want him driving, and engine compartment's not going to be open, right? So we're getting the seats in. This is where that plastic kind of shows a little bit the difference of Tamiya cement with Tamiya plastic versus Takom plastic. Once it's dry, it's solid as a rock. I I would say it's stronger than Tamiya, the ultimate bond. But that initial bond, and even like 30 minutes later, these seats were still wanting to recline a little bit. Okay, this is important. I know it's off camera for the moment, but this piece wants you to drill. This is step 15. It wants you to drill 5 holes. When you're looking at the diagram, the topmost hole is not used. Do not put that in because it will be in that steel plate texture. Um, at least it'll be close enough to it that you don't want to have to fill that and possibly lose out on that. Just dry fit, it's F12 and F5. Just dry fit those 2 pieces in, flip over where, it looks like the 2 little indents are, or 4 little indents, and then drill. That's my best piece of advice. Don't just look at the step before and say, okay, I got to drill these 5 holes, because you don't. You only have to drill 4. It is very obvious once you dry fit the parts which 4 you need to build to or drill to. So not too much to worry about there, just definitely worth pointing out. So when I put this little, this is probably 10, 15 minutes later. And I'm going to put this on the back of that chair. And it was still wanting to recline forward just a little bit. But definitely, I should have taken more time in between drying. I don't have that patience. Um, After 10 minutes, I'm like, all right, what's next, right? But it still goes together fine, and you can keep working things back and forth. It is nice. The nice part about it is that you have working time, where you can fix errors and mistakes. And when it comes to little pieces, sometimes you can't dry fit them. You got to glue them in and then work with them, as they're kind of stuck on the plastic. So that is a benefit to the difference I found in the glue and plastic. So this is a little platform and box that's going to go into the back. Other piece of advice, I would not glue that until you're ready to put the back on. You've dry fitted the back at least, and you see where that needs to be, because it can slip a little further back than it needs to. And we're going to start building the panels. You'll see a lot of sanding marks here. The engineering of this kit is really, really good. But there's got to be injector pin marks somewhere. And they're all over the inside of these panels and on the bottom of the skirts. And the ones on the bottom of the skirts, I know won't really be seen, but they are they're decently difficult to get rid of. So just keep that in mind. Nothing on the outside that I can remember has a single seam or a single injector pin mark, which is awesome. So it goes together really, really nice with honestly pretty minimal cleanup, when you take into the number of parts as a factor, of course. But these bags also, to note, they're not resin, they're not 3D printed, but they've got to be a different plastic than the rest of the kit. They come on like their own sprue, I think the J sprue, There's two sprues that have these. They're very soft, um, which is great because that seam line, all you got to do is give it a hard pinch and they like jam together, and there is no seam line. It's just careful when you're sanding it, because one or two passes and it'll take that nub away and you'll start digging into detail. You could go like I was going 1200 grit and just maybe two or three passes to clean them tops, sometimes as little as one. So just something to keep in mind, because the bags are really, really nice on this kit. The rolled up tarps and everything. It's, I would say it's a benefit, or one of the nicest features of this kit. So made a bold move here, gluing the MG34 to the sidewall. We'll see if I can paint that on the piece. Now we're gonna do sub assemblies, so it won't be too hard, but I'm sure I'll overpaint a little bit, as we all do. All right, and then we have a little bit more photo etch coming up here in a second. It's going to be this is another kind of funny feature we get for the MP40, like clips, that it's going to sit in, so, wouldn't fall out while driving. But we don't get them for the machine gun. Not sure why they did it, just happens to be that way. I don't think with what you can see it takes anything away, just kind of a curious thing. MIG Ultra Glue is what I'm using for the photo etch. This revolutionized, at least for me, the use of photo etch and clear parts in this hobby. I'll never forget the Airfix plane I put together. It looked beautiful. It was the best kit I'd made. I had my thumb on the cockpit, and I put the smallest dab of Tamiya extra thin on the very bottom corner, and I went to pick up my thumb, and it was already stuck. This is devastating. I think it's probably happened to us all. This Ultra Glue from MIG is the best I found, because it dries clear and it's an acrylic. So you just paint it on with a paintbrush, and I will be pretty heavy, not heavy with it, but for the size of those photo etch parts, I'll be pretty heavy with it. And then I'll press down, into, clamp it in into the little notch or whatever. Glue will come out the other side, and you can just take your brush and brush it away. And by doing that, it also fills into the cracks, and you can work with it a little bit, which is really nice. So next we are building the fenders, and we're going to leave, we'll say, half the stuff off of it. Half the stuff are tools and bags and tarps and things. So you'll see at the end of the video, I have a whole box of, I don't know, 20 to 30 pieces that are going to be painted separate. Why I didn't include that one machine gun in there, I just wanted to challenge myself, I guess. But we're going to get like half of these glued on, half these pieces at least, so we can pop the others on, after that initial base coat goes down. And these fenders, this fit is amazing. Really, really good when you secure it to the like side panels. So I was a little worried. I tried to assemble as much as I could. If you watch my Archer video, I left that in like 5 or 6 subsections. This is really just, I guess, 2.5, we'll call it, because the rear door is a small subsection, but it's top and bottom halves. So I try to put as much in as possible and as much on as possible. Just, again, I haven't built a Takom kit. This is brand new, so I'd expect it to be great. But I'm used to Tamiya, where I know, that Archer, that there were things that were glued together, after I put the final clear coat on. I was like, oh man, I forgot to glue the gun barrel in. It never fell out, right? Over, a week or two of weathering and painting. And so I made it a little hard on myself, but wanted to make sure I didn't spend, 5 nights building all these tiny pieces for it not to fit together. I did break that piece later. Luckily, it went back together perfectly. And you'll see there's the injector pin marks on the bottom. The hard one is to the right of the screen right now, near the headlight. Not a lot of room to access it. Hard to get your sanding stick or sponge or whatever you're using in there. But if you're going to muddy it up, you might not see it. I plan on not doing that much weathering to this particular kit, just because there's a lot of nice detail and small parts and things. And I don't know, I say that and all of a sudden it's going to be covered in an inch of mud, but um, I haven't done a clean vehicle in a while, and I thought this would be a good subject for that. So this piece, this back panel, the bottom of it, after you attach the sidewalls, it's a little bit tight. So try to dry fit that the best you can. Even after 10-15 minutes of dry fitting that, I still had problems. I had to clip out a little bit of the bottom and kind of sand it back down. So it looks like it'll fit great now. It'll definitely take, some pressing on and holding for maybe a minute, but it'll be more than good enough. So it's not, a huge fit issue, but again, things to be aware of. You have to keep working these side panels, like pushing the front in and pushing the back in, pushing the front in. So that's another example of where it's nice to have that kind of slower dry time with the plastic melting. There's more than a couple pieces on this kit that need to be worked as they're drying, which seems crazy and messy, and sometimes it is, but that's how you get the best fit, at least in my opinion. So here you can see a little too tight. Fix it off camera, but we'll get our first initial look. It's looking pretty good. And we'll get the top built up. Not gonna lie, the first half of this build, I was a little bit that first step with the panels for the torsion bar not fitting. That really, there's definitely a little silver piece. It got me down a little bit in there. I had a lot of hype for this kit, to see exactly where it is. I was kind of like, oh boy, exactly what will be left clear. What did I buy? Listen to the internet, right? And then there's multiple clear parts, and there were a couple moments in that. This is a little bit of a flaw. Some of the pieces are honestly so small. I mentioned it before that in the tools and the bags and all visible that stuff places doesn't have. It's like, why did you do this to me? Nor does the figure, which. But it is what it is. Assume. But anyways, when I got the outside of the gray, whatever it's called, and flash and black for his belt, and most of us know that, but it turned around my opinion. It's such a nice figure. It still has to not have some flaws here and there. But the way it looks, I don't know. Really, when you pop that top on, why go through all the time to do that? Put that tarp. I'm obsessed with some of these other parts. It looks awesome. Anyways, kit. This part is put that on. It really brings it kind of full circle. This wants you to. This is where the vision port's going to hang. If you glue them the way that it's telling you to glue them in the instructions, little bit maybe they are better than me, but I tried it. The paint guide on like the very last 16 page, times, and it would not work. It's really tough to see. The only way I could get it to work was
how it
gluing the two
wants,
small
how
pieces
it's
together.
instructing us, I should say. If you
Um,
glue
for them to be
the,
painted,
we'll call it the front
there's
one in, you can't get the back one in the right position. It's physically impossible without snapping one of the small pieces. So glue them together, then put them up against the side panel. I glued the edges, waited them, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then got some glue into these little hinges and just started working them forward. And it took some work, but it's the only way I was able to get that to fit. So another little area to maybe trust your model instincts rather than the instructions. And there you'll see, you can see right there, I mean, the hood doesn't have any other option but open or closed. So again, if you want to display it with the figure, no, it doesn't make sense for the hood to be open, but it is a nice engine. And it would look great open too. I just didn't go that route. So starting to come together though. We got only a couple more pieces left here. And we will be good to start painting. Like I said, again, there's 20 to 30 pieces that are separate that will get glued on at the end. And I tried to leave all of the clear parts off that I could. There was one or two that you would have seen earlier on the side panels that I glued on, just because they'll be visible from looking down into the vehicle. So I didn't want to have to use glue in there with the clear part, and it just, I don't know. We'll mask it, and that'll be a pain in and of itself. But here we go. We got the final vehicle, at least 90% built up. Wheels and tracks, we'll paint separate, and tools again. So appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, like and subscribe. This is it's a really nice kit, and I think this is I don't know that I would personally go out and buy the Rommel kit tomorrow, the Rommel Halftrack from Takom, which also looks awesome. This is just this was a lot. This is a lot of model. This is a lot of time, concentration. I dropped 100 pieces on the floor. Right? It's one of those kits, but it comes together in the end, and it looks good. I can't lie. I I want to be frustrated at this kit, but now that I'm past some of those more annoying stages, I think it looks fantastic. And again, if you don't like the way the interior comes, I kept reminding myself this, we can cover most of it, but we're gonna go with the halfway. So again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you thought it was informative with the instructional errors, some of the things to kind of, I guess, just do your research on. Um, the figure, things like that. There's a box of extra pieces, and just be prepared. This isn't it's not a weekend build. I mean, maybe if you spent 8 hours a day building, but it's an involved kit, and yeah, excited to get it painted in the next video. We'll do some priming, painting, and get it ready for weathering. Thanks again, guys.